Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie. For those of you who are new, my husband and I are just documenting our journey through IVF, our first pregnancy, now with our first baby boy, our marriage and our faith, and I just thank you so much for clicking on this video. So today I am just going to continue talking about my breastfeeding journey. I have had lots of uphill battles and just struggles and all the things that could go wrong, I feel like have, and so I'm just documenting that and sharing that with you guys so that if you are going through it as well, you know that you are not alone. So if you have not already seen the previous videos, I will link that above so you can catch up. So today I'm kind of breaking right into week 5-ish, ending on week 4 and into week 5 of my postpartum journey and breastfeeding my son Matthew. And during this time I had a cut on my right nipple. I was trying everything I could think of to heal that on my own using the lanolin cream. I ended up getting some of those, the silverettes, which are just like probably quarter size, maybe a little bit bigger. And I bought some of those. They are a little pricey, so they might not be in budget. They work. I could tell that my son didn't really want to nurse from me if I had those on. I just kind of started noticing that it would take longer for him to try and latch once I had those on. So if I knew that it was coming up time to breastfeed, then I would usually go in and take those out maybe 20-30 minutes before. But to say that it hurt so bad for him to nurse on my right side, and I mean excruciating pain to where like my whole body would just tense up, and it would take a good couple of minutes for me to like finally be able to breathe through it and relax. So I always favored my left side and would always latch him to the left side first and then go to the right side afterwards, which in hindsight was the terrible, probably the worst thing that I could have done, because that meant he wasn't emptying my right breast, and so it wasn't like moving that milk through. And the other problem with that is that I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't paying attention to how much he was taking from the right side or how long, and so it was just, I was setting us up for disaster. So Tuesday in that week, I woke up running a fever and my right breast just hurt all along the outside part. I mean, it felt like I had just been like digging in with my thumb trying to like hand express, but I hadn't been, but it was so sore and just hurt to the touch. And I was like, what in the world is going on? So I called my OB and they wanted me to come in. I felt and looked awful. I mean, I was running a fever. It was at least 101 at that point. I just did not feel good at all. So thankfully I had my mom come over and stay with Matthew while I went to the doctor, and they did confirm that I had clogged ducts and I had mastitis. So at the time it was just one clog that they could tell, and it was kind of on the lower part of my breast. It got me put on some antibiotics, and my doctor told me to pump every 2 hours, day and night. And I was like, really? Seriously? And she said, yes, every 2 hours. And I was like, okay. So, and again, felt awful. So I came home, I went back to bed, and I literally would wake up, pump, and go back to bed. Wake up, pump, and go back to bed. And try to get as much sleep as I possibly could, which was just exhausting because, you know, you're sitting there only getting maybe an hour's worth of sleep, because once you're up, for me anyways, it takes me a while to fall back asleep. So it was just an exhausting couple of days with trying to do that. So by Thursday, I was still not feeling any better. Again, thankfully my mom had come and she was staying here at the house with me and Matthew just to try and help because my husband was at work. So Thursday, my fever had gotten up to 103.3. So I called my OB again because at this point I had been on 2 days of antibiotics. I had not been able to break my fever. Nothing that I was doing was working. So they told me to go to the ER, not even to go back to the doctor, just go straight to the ER. They also told me to pack a bag, which is where my hormones at that time, because remind you, I'm 5 weeks postpartum, my hormones are crazy, and I just lost it when they told me to pack a bag. They were wanting to see if my breast had any abscess in them. And so if they did, then they were probably going to admit me to try and get them drained. So that was why they wanted me to pack a bag. So I get off the phone with them, I call my husband to let him know what's going on, I told my mom what's going on, and I went to go take a shower because hopefully that will help me feel a little bit better. And I sobbed in the shower. I mean, just uncontrollably sobbed the entire time. The whole time I was getting ready, packing my bag, everything, just could not stop crying at the thought of being separated from my son. even though I really hadn't been with him for those 2 days, like I really hadn't had much interaction with him because again, I was waking up every 2 hours to pump. I couldn't stand the thought of just not even being in the same house with him. So as we're in the hospital, my husband met me up there. As we're in there waiting, they did admit me, but admitted me into the ER part, not actually into like a room in the hospital. And at one point my fever was up to 104.4. So, which really terrified my husband because then on the little like board of what they're watching for, they have written also sepsis down, which is not good. And so he's kind of freaking out at the same time. Thankfully, I did not have an abscess. It was just lots of clogged ducts at this point. It was not one, there were several clogged ducts on my right side. So pumped me full of fluids, got me started on a new set of antibiotics, called that in so that I could go and pick that up on the way home. And once they got me through antibiotics and lots of like Tylenol, ibuprofen, I did be able to break my fever before I left, and I felt loads better just coming home. Even my mom said I looked night and day from when I left, you know, I guess we were there for like probably 6 or 7 hours. In those 6 or 7 hours, I looked tons better. So they still wanted me to pump every 2 to 3 hours though at this point, or try and latch Matthew on and try and help clear out those clogs. The thought of having him latch on at this point, because I still have this cut right across my nipple, just terrified me because I knew that pain that it had. Pumping did not hurt, so that's why I was still pumping. But latching him, just like I said, was that excruciating pain. And this is where I have to give such a huge shout out to my mom. I don't know what I would have done this week without her because like I said, my husband was having to work. Matthew was miserable this whole week because if you haven't watched the recovery video, I will link that up here. But I had been eating vegetables that we normally eat all the time, and I hadn't even like put 2 and 2 together that what I'm eating is impacting him. First time mom, rookie mistake. So he was just very gassy and just miserable, crying a lot, which is not normal for him. And so hearing that and dealing with what I was dealing with, it was a lot. And God bless my mom. She suffered through both of us and just kept us both together throughout that week. So I just thank you, Mom. I love you. Trying to get relief. I did start nursing Matthew, and I tried to move this kid in all different positions. We would lay on the bed. I would try the dangle feeding. I mean, anything, because one thing that they told me that I hadn't really thought about is that you want baby's chin to be pointed in the direction of your clog. So that's why I was moving him in all different directions to try and hit, you know, all areas of my breast to try and get any of those clogs out. I was also using my Haka with Epsom salt. I was massaging my breast we have a little massage gun. I was trying with that. It sounds like that would be really painful, but I promise you it actually felt really good. But the one thing that I did do is I did stop doing every 2 hours, but I definitely did not go longer than 3 hours without either nursing him or pumping. So the first little relief that I felt like I got one of the clogs out. One night I was nursing Matthew, and all of a sudden like my hand just felt really wet, and I was like, what in the world? But it was sticky, and I'm like, what? I was like, oh my gosh, I think he got one. Yay! So somehow Matthew got one of them, thank goodness. But that was I think that was the only one that I actually noticed him getting out. And I got desperate at this point. I think we were this was like Friday or Saturday night, and I was still just miserable. My breast was still full of all these clogs. The antibiotics that I was on now were definitely helping in terms of like the infection side of it, but in terms of the actual clogs, because you still have to get those out, they were still there. It's still just miserable. When I would pump, it would still just be very little coming out of there. I resulted to my husband. I told him, I need your help. I need you to try and help me get these clogs undone. And at first he was like, what do you want me to do? And I was like, I think you know what I want you to do. So thank you to my husband. He definitely helped. It definitely helped like try and break some of that up. So if you are last resort, if you need some relief, tell your husband he needs to help. So thank you to my husband for helping me. So all laughing aside on this, it took a couple of weeks for me to finally get all of the clogs out and completely heal from just this one little bout of clogged ducts and mastitis. And it was miserable. Before this, when I would pump at night or whatnot, my right breast was always my supplier. My left boob was always the slacker boob, if you will, and that's what I would refer to them as. After this and healing, my right breast, even up to today, has never been able to recover. My left breast is now my producer, and my right breast is now my slacker, because it just has never fully recovered from that first bout of mastitis. And I think what finally helped completely heal everything was I started noticing, like, over the whole like outside part of my nipple there, it looked like there was a white scab, like a milk kind of scab over it. And at first I was like, well, I don't know if I should like try and peel this off, and it started just kind of starting to peel off on its own. So I peeled that off, and then there was still like just a like a scab part on the front of my nipple, and I totally just peeled it off. I didn't know what else to do, because if I could tell that it was blocking like my my ducts on the outside or whatnot. And so once I did that and peeled that off, it already started helping like relieve and get my supply at least a little bit back. So that was definitely part of my problem, was that I had a scab on there as well that I didn't even realize. As of today, I have had clogged ducts / mastitis 4 times now. It is always on my right side. My left breast thankfully has not had a problem, but everything that I have had a problem with is always on my right side. Once we recovered from like the whole outside of my breast hurting, the inside of my right breast completely clogged up and hurt as well. So thankfully I caught that one really fast and got the antibiotics started, and it kind of did the same like routine that I had done before, because I think this happened about 3-4 weeks, because I had just healed from everything, and then it happened again, and I was like, are you serious? I could not figure out what was happening and why it kept happening. So I did well. Once we got those first 2 healed up, I did well up until about the end of my 3rd month postpartum. I got clogs again. Thankfully it did not result in a big fever or anything like that like the first 2 did, but I was able to get those clogs out relatively quickly. This time again that I literally just recovered from having just my whole right breast just all of a sudden just started swelling up. I was telling my mom, who stays and watches Matthew for me, I said, I don't understand how mine just happens, and it happens so fast. I check every night whenever I get up and pump now, and constantly after I feed Matthew, checking my breast for lumps or the little bumps, and I don't feel anything, and then all of a sudden it's there, and it's bad all of a sudden. And so I don't understand, but so that is just something that I have to deal with and I have to watch constantly. So before, Matthew was sleeping through the night, and I have not been able to give up that night pump yet, because one, it terrifies me to just one cold turkey stop, which I definitely wouldn't do that. But it scares me because I don't want to get clogs again. You know, the clogged ducts is just miserable. If you have not had one yet, or if you are getting ready to have your baby, I would just say make sure you do lots of research on that so that you know what to look for, and so that you can get it and attack it really quickly, because definitely don't want to let that thing go untreated for very long. I would say it's definitely better. I know what to look for now, and I'm doing my best to recognize what I'm doing and what Matthew's doing whenever it does happen, so that I can try and fix it going forward. So we are 5 months now postpartum, which is just crazy as I'm filming this for you guys. That is it for this video. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, make sure you give it a big thumbs up. Click that little subscribe button. If you know of a new mom or someone who is getting ready to give birth and they're about to be a new mom, share this video with them. Let them know my struggles, and so that hopefully people can learn from my mistakes. Do what I say and not as I do, as the saying goes, right? So if I can be praying for you in any way, drop those down below. I love to pray for you guys. If you have any questions, I will be more than happy to answer those. You can also drop those below, and if I have experienced it, I will be more than happy to share with you how it happened, what I did, and anything like that. So I will talk to you guys soon. Have a wonderful week. Take care, and God bless.